Fear, man, it's a feeling we all know, right? It can totally stop us in our tracks, stop us from taking that big risk, from speaking our truth, or even just going after what we really truly want. But what if I told you that most of what we call fear isn't even real? What if it's all just an illusion, something cooked up entirely by our own minds? Well, today we're going to dive right into that exact idea.
Okay, just think about it for a second. Have you ever had one of those difficult conversations you knew you needed to have? You know the one, with a partner, maybe your boss, a family member, and you just put it off and off and off. You kind of slap that label on it in your mind, this is going to be difficult, and you just dreaded the very thought of it.
And when that dread kicked in, your mind probably started playing these little horror movies, right? You imagined all the conflict, the yelling, the rejection. You basically wrote out a whole negative script for how it was going to go down, before a single word was even spoken.
Okay, but here's the twist. What if the problem wasn't the other person, or even the conversation itself? What if that feeling of fear, that gut-wrenching dread, was actually coming from some kind of pre-existing program running inside you? Now that is the core idea we're going to dig into today.
All right, so let's get to the bottom of this. Where does this feeling we call fear actually come from? Because if we can find the source, well, that's when we can start to change our relationship with it.
Well, the source, according to some really brilliant thinkers like Joel Goldsmith and Napoleon Hill, is something they call mental conditioning. And really all that is the programming you've picked up over your entire life. You know, subconscious beliefs, superstitions, old hurts. It's all stored away in there, and it just automatically triggers that fear response.
You know, in his classic book, Think and Grow Rich, Napoleon Hill actually broke this whole thing down into 6 basic fears. And when you look at this list, that difficult conversation we were talking about suddenly makes a whole lot more sense, doesn't it? It's often rooted in something deeper, like a fear of criticism, or maybe a fear of loss of love. See, these are the underlying programs that are driving all that anxiety.
So, okay, we've got this internal conditioning. But here's the crazy part. It doesn't just make us feel bad. It can actually shape our reality. It can literally create the very outcomes we're so desperately trying to avoid.
Think of it like this. This conditioning is like putting on a pair of glasses with a warped, fearful lens. When you look at any situation through that lens, your mind starts hunting for evidence to prove that your fear is justified. It's a classic case of confirmation bias, and it leads straight to a self-fulfilling prophecy.
And this slide just lays it out perfectly, the 2 completely different paths this can take. Look over on the left at scenario A. You walk into that conversation expecting a fight. You're defensive, you're on edge, you're looking for trouble, and guess what? You find it. You literally create the conflict you are so afraid of. But then look over on the right at scenario B. Here, you go in without that fear filter. You're open, you're curious, and you allow for a totally different, way more harmonious outcome to unfold naturally.
So, here's the bottom line really. One path is totally rigid. It's stuck on a script from your past. The other one, it's fluid. It's open to what's actually happening in the present moment. And the choice between them, well, that's all yours. It just depends on whether you decide to believe those fearful thoughts your mind is churning out.
All right, so if all this conditioning is the problem, then what's the solution? Well, it's not what you'd think. It's not about fighting the fear or trying to crush it. The antidote is something way more subtle. It's about accessing a state of inner quiet.
This quote from the mystic Joel Goldsmith just gets right to the heart of it. The goal isn't to go to war with your fear, it's to stop fighting altogether. It's about creating this kind of inner space, a vacuum, he calls it, where the fear just can't survive. And in that space, a deeper sense of peace can finally come through.
So what is this silence anyway? It's not necessarily about a total absence of noise or thought. It's more a state of being the observer. You see the fearful thoughts pop up from your conditioning, but you don't grab onto them. You don't buy into them. You realize they aren't you.
So how do you actually do this? Well, this process here breaks it down really simply. First, you just acknowledge the fear is there. No need to panic, just, yep, there it is. Then you just let it be. No resisting it, no judging it. Now, step 3, this is the real game changer. You realize, I am not this thought. I am not this fear. You create that little bit of distance. And from that space, you can finally act from what you genuinely want, not from that old fearful conditioning.
And you know what? When you start practicing this consistently, something really amazing starts to happen. It's not just about getting through a few scary moments anymore. We're talking about fundamentally changing your entire experience of life. Think about it. When you stop identifying with all that fear conditioning, what's left? Your true nature. Joy, love,
peace. These aren't things you have to go out and get. They're what's revealed when the clouds of all that conditioning finally part. You start acting spontaneously, doing what you genuinely want to do. And harmony? Well, harmony just becomes your default experience because it was always there, right underneath all that noise.
I want you to really let this next part sink in. You are not the thoughts, the fears, or the programming in your mind. You are the pure awareness that is conscious of the mind. That awareness, that's your real nature, and it is completely 100% untouched by fear. So I'm going to leave you with this question. That conversation you've been avoiding, that big project you've been putting off, that life you've been dreaming of, what would you do right now, today, if you truly, deeply knew that the fear holding you back was just an illusion?